All right. Hey everyone. So I think you guys got the emails and everything. We sent out some more links to our website. We're changing the podcast up a little bit to be more of like a podcast style structure rather than just like a full-on meeting. I think it's going to meet people's needs a little bit more. It's going to help us dive into some deeper subjects and get a little bit more specific in the things that we are all dealing with. Um, so if you guys have any suggestions on some topics that you'd like to talk about or some issues that you guys need help overcoming, I'd really love to hear everyone's suggestions. You guys all have my email, and also we're going to be changing it to where you can go back and kind of look at the notes. We're turning that into a blog called the Seafarers Post or Seafarers Journal. I'm sorry. And that's going to be on our website as well. So, and then that way you can go back and check out every episode that we have from here on out, as well as read it if you don't have the time to watch a video. And then you'll see some of it show up as posts on our social media as well. So last week we talked a little bit about being an empathic listener. It's really part of our series where we're talking about communication. Communication is super important. It's the key to any relationship, business and personal, and it's a skill that actually needs to be developed in every person. It's not something that you're just born knowing how to do. Some people are better than others. However, it's a skill, just like any other skill, that needs to be practiced and learned. And you need to be intentional about it. So in your communication, I preach this all the time. One of the most important things you have to do is be a good listener. And this is what we talked about last week. So listeners in general are worth more on the open market. If you don't know how to listen, you can't meet somebody's needs if you don't listen and understand what their needs are. And here, we talk about our businesses and our personal relationships, but really in any relationship, you're communicating how to meet each other's needs. So if you can't learn to listen and really hear what the other person is saying, then you're not going to understand how to meet their needs. If we can better understand our customers and our clients, our employees, our families and our friends' needs, then we can better position ourselves to help meet those needs, which increases our value to everyone around us. Last week's challenge was to be intentional, and I don't know if any of you guys had any. I keep saying last week; it was 2 weeks ago. Does anyone have anything from last week's challenge where you were able to put empathic listening into place? Does anyone have any stories or testimonials about how that has helped your listening skills?
I mean, for me, this is Luis, by the way. I mean, for me, it's just, I'm always trying to do it because I just know it's a problem with, at home where, we're eating dinner and sometimes instead of sitting down and just talking, I get on my phone and then I'm still on my phone while I'm eating dinner and I'm not paying attention to, my significant other. But so lately, it's like when it comes around to be dinner time stuff, I put my phone away, I'll touch it until, we're done having a conversation. And it helped my personal relationship. So
definitely. I had an instance. It was that night, man. I go home and my wife had a little bit of a stressful day, and so I started asking her questions, and this is something I think about all the time. But when you're around people who you really care about, you tend to let your guard down a little bit, so you may or may not be as intentional. So I started asking her, how was your day? Stuff like that. Typical open-ended questions. And we ended up talking for like 2 hours, and I focused on listening. And then my wife, by the way, she's an incredible listener. And so like our listening skills are not even on the same plane. She's way better than me, but I focused on listening to her. And at the end of the night, she was like, yeah, so what's going on? Like, what's the issue here? Why did you just listen to me all night long? And it was funny because that really just proves that I'm not a great listener. But but um, when you listen, you can respond in a whole lot better way. So now we're going to focus on the second part of communication, which is when you actually start to speak. So today, I want to really talk about how we can earn trust and gain trust through transparent communication. One of the things I sent out in an email a couple weeks ago concerning the listening is that we should be faster to listen than we are to speak. And oh, sorry about that. We should be faster to listen than we are to speak, and that we should actually listen more than we should speak. So that when we do speak, our words actually carry more weight. If you're someone who talks a lot like me, then if you just keep, sometimes your words can get cheapened by the amount. Gold is valuable because it's rare, and so so I like to say that my words are valuable, but I would say that if you're someone who listens twice as much as you speak, the value of your words go up quite a bit. So today we really want to talk about when you do actually go to respond, when you do actually go to speak, that you want those words to carry weight. So we're going to talk about some things we can do for those things to carry weight. So communication that builds trust should actually be clear and consistent and transparent. That's language that we use a lot, is we want clear, consistent, transparent communication. So what I mean by clear is you don't want to complicate things. If you're just trying to explain the same thing over and over and over again, and it's not super direct and specific, then what ends up happening is you kind of muddy the message that you're trying to get out. When you muddy the message, then there tends to be miscommunication. And miscommunication leads to frustration and confusion. So if your message itself isn't clear, then people don't really understand what it is you're trying to get across. That leads me to the next thing. I believe that communication should be consistent. If communication is not consistent, then you actually risk it not being clear anymore either. If you're saying one thing one time, another thing the next time, where you say, hey, I want you to do this, and then 5 minutes later you come in and say, hey, I actually think you should do this. And you're just changing things around all the time on people, it creates a lot of miscommunication, and miscommunication leads to frustration. There's here where I live in Granite City, there's this one area that's kind of known for one-way streets, and it's very, very inconsistent on what's a one-way street, what's not a one-way street, where the stop signs are, where the stop signs aren't. And then I live on the corner of a one-way street and a two-way street, and it's technically a one-way stop. So the only traffic that's coming down there that actually has to stop at this intersection is people coming on the one-way street, and they have to stop at the two-way street. But the thing is, in every direction, sometimes there's stop signs, sometimes there's not. And as you're traveling through this area, you never know like what you're supposed to do. It's not like a natural flow. It's like you get to drive 3 blocks without a stop sign, and then you got to stop for the next 2 blocks. And so what happens, you end up with a lot of people just either running the stop sign, or they are or they stop even when there's not a stop sign. And I kid you not, there are 5 wrecks in front of my house every year. Some of them are more dangerous than the others. And just this past week, it was exactly a week ago today, I went out there and I heard something, early in the morning, and heard this big crash. I go outside, and it's a car full of kids, and they smashed right into my tree because some guy hit them, and I everyone luckily was okay. It was kind of a crazy situation, but luckily everyone was okay. But as I was talking to the people who were in the cars, they're like, we thought this was this. And the other guy's like, well, I thought it was this. And it turns out neither one of them actually really knew what was going on, because everything that was communicated to them up to that point was inconsistent. And as leaders, we really need to be consistent in our communication and follow through on what we say. If we send one message one day and a different message the next day, if we say this is not okay on one day, but it is okay on the next day, or if we don't if we don't ask for consistent updates on how things are going, and we don't really know how the process of that particular job is going, and there isn't consistency in that communication, and there isn't a precedence set for it, then there's going to be confusion somewhere along in that process. And I think we've all done it before, but I can tell you this: if there isn't clear and consistent communication, it always leads to more frustration. And the last thing, I think, communication that builds trust should be transparent. I'm a big believer in just telling it like it is. If you don't tell it like it is, then people are going to be left wondering. I don't think you should have to manipulate or hide truth from anybody. And I did sales, and I've been around those salespeople who think that if I can get you to look over here, then you don't see what I'm doing over here. And I'm not like that. Even in sales, it was, what is it that you need? This is what I can do. This is what I can't do. This is what you can do. This is what you can't do. And I just tell people like it is. I'm transparent on all of our numbers. I'm a general contractor, and that means I charge a fee on top of things. My clients know the fee. My subcontractors all know the fee, because I want there to be transparency in my business from start to finish. I don't think that, I think that if you value people, if you truly value people, then they can handle the truth. And if you find yourself not wanting to be fully transparent, then I think that you should probably start to check your motives. Are you subconsciously trying to get over on somebody? And I found myself doing that. I really wanted to make a sale, and next thing you know, I'm like kind of avoiding certain things, but I like to check myself, because at the end of the day, communication that builds trust is going to be 100% transparent. You want all the cards out, so that everyone can see what's going on. With our communication should be clear, consistent, and transparent. Now, there's 5 main ways that we communicate that should be, clear, consistent, and transparent. The first way that we communicate is verbally. This is the way that we most think of whenever we talk about communication: what we say, and just as important, how we say it. I'm guilty of kind of just being intense, or being too sarcastic. So whenever I go to say something, even though the words that are coming out of my mouth are 100% what I meant and clear, the way I said it may have been a little too intense or sarcastic, and the way you say it is just as important as the information that you're giving. It's not 100% about the truth. The second way that we communicate is nonverbal or body language. And a lot of times this can actually say more than what our words are actually saying. If I'm super puffed up and intense, but I'm like, yeah, man, I really love you, but like, our body language says everything. Or if you're not listening, if I can tell that you're not really listening, you're communicating that you don't have value for what it is that I'm saying with your body language. If you're not making eye contact, people are going to pick up on these things subconsciously, and they're going to determine whether you actually value them and what it is you're really communicating, what it is you're really thinking. So the third way that we, and I think this is one of the most important ones to me, is with our actions. You communicate with your actions. If you don't back up what you say with your actions, if you say, I'm going to be here at this time, and then you're not, or this comes back to inconsistent communication. If you say, we're going to do this time, this time, this time, and this time, and then you get too busy, it communicates that the thing that you told them to do in the first place is not that important. Or if you run an organization and you say one thing and the guy underneath you tells someone to go and do something different, then there's inconsistent communication and how we're backing up as an organization. And that sends a bigger message than actually what we say if we don't back it up with our actions. And I understand as business owners, we get super busy. I'm guilty of it myself, but we get really busy, and it gets difficult to back things up 100% of the time. We try and set a new policy in place, and then it's difficult to follow through. Why? Because we are just swamped, and we're trying to grow, and we're trying to help our guys. But I can tell you this, if we don't put a lot of emphasis on being consistent, it cheapens what we say the next time we go to change something. If we want to change a policy one time and we don't follow through, then or if they see us not following through on it, let's say we're going to show up 5 minutes early and we're going to get the job site prepared and everything like that, and you're the leader and you don't show up, what that does is it actually speaks louder than what it is you say. The policy doesn't matter at that point because it's not being carried out by you. The fourth way that we communicate is visually. Now this, I would say, it's more prevalent now than it ever has been. If I create a Facebook post, or the images that I put online or in a video, those things are going to communicate. If I on my website, I put contractors that just look like they're working super hard and they're sweaty and it doesn't look very enjoyable, I'm sending a message that come work for me. It's going to be tough and it's going to be hard, versus if I put really happy contractors on there, guys who are smiling, then what I'm communicating is a whole different thing. So, or visuals, pictures, on posts and stuff like that. This is, it's more important now than it's ever been with social media. And the fifth way, this is probably the one that I've stressed the most on here, and that is written communication. Written communication will manage things and communicate for you when you're not there to actually do it. Now, this could be in the form of an email when you're giving directions, or this could also be in the form of systems where you are putting systems into place. This is how we do this. This is the process. This is very specific instructions on how we do get things from point A to point B. If your written systems are not in place, then you are always going to have to verbally communicate everything. Your written systems will communicate for you when you're not there. And our systems that we preach so much, business systems that we preach so much, is a form of written communication. So if I would say that most of us probably need to work on the written communication the most. If we write things down, I've told you guys to be students of your business, write it down, and you'll find out that when you begin to track things, your business is probably not communicating the way that you thought it was. But if you begin to write things down and track things, you're going to have a better idea of how you can communicate to other people. And it'll manage your business when you're not there to manage it. We're always communicating something. And the more aware of how we personally communicate, the more intentional you can be in avoiding miscommunication and confusion and frustration. Can anyone, does anyone have like a funny story or anything where there was a miscommunication? I have one that I'll share really quickly. And then I want to hear some stories from you guys. Um, I was a teacher, and it was at a school where a lot of these kids are from other countries, so there was a language barrier, which is pretty, it's kind of funny in some ways. But there was this one kid. His name was actually long. He'll probably never watch this, so it's okay. Uh, but he was from the Philippines, and we were playing this game called Heads Up, where it's on your phone, and you put it on your head, and there's a word that comes across, and they have to be able to tell you or get you to guess what that word is without actually saying the word. So maybe we'll have to edit this part out because it's a little racist. But so the word, I couldn't guess what it is. He just jumps up as soon as the word pops up. He jumps up and starts humping the table. I'm like, what is going on? I'm thinking something's wrong. And it's this high school kid. He's just jumping up and humping this table like there's no tomorrow. And I'm like, dude, just stop. Like, what is it? And then he's like, it flies, is what he said. And then he starts humping the table again. And I have no idea what's going on. And then finally, I'm just like, I'm done with this. We're all laughing and everything. And I look at it, and it said hummingbird. And he did not know the difference between humming and humping. So I don't know how he learned the word humping before humming, but that's what happened. So there's a big communication barrier there. And so does anyone else have
I kind of a similar story in a foreign country. My dad is from Mexico, my grandpa from Mexico, and I go to Mexico for the first time when I was in like 5th grade, and I don't speak a lick of Spanish at this point. So like, anyone I talk to that lived there, if they didn't speak English, then I didn't know what the hell they were saying. So I remember my grandpa was like, "Hey, like, go get us some Coke from down the street." So he gave me and my brother some pesos to go buy a bottle of Coke. So in Mexico, all the bottles are glass, like all of them. So we go into the store, and I want a Coke. I told the guy, he understood what I was meaning. So I get the bottle, and he has the bottle in his hand. He says something in Spanish, and I just shook my head like, yeah. And he opens the bottle of Coke, and he gets a 1-gallon plastic Ziploc bag, and he dumps the Coke in the bag, and then gives me a straw in the bag and hands me the bag of Coke. And he kept the bottle, and he gave me money back. So I was just like really confused. Like, it was just like a communication. I just had no clue. But he gives me a bag of soda instead of the bottle, and keeps the bottle.
That's funny. Yeah, it's really interesting. When I first got married, it's been 14 years ago. I was just a little baby, and so when we got married, our perspectives were just completely different, and sometimes when you're a leader, you have to lead people who don't speak the same language as you. They don't have the same perspective, their entire personal lens. There's just no overlap. And I think it was, I fell in love with my wife, we got married, and then realized we don't speak any of the same languages. And so it was pretty difficult. Like, imagine you're trying to communicate with somebody who is in China, and you're trying to describe the sky, right? And it's daytime here, and you're saying the sky is blue, it's got clouds in it, and there's a big bright sun. And they're like, absolutely not. That's not true at all. The sky's black, it's got these little sparkly stars in it, and there's a big moon up there. And you guys can argue all day long about what the sky looks like. And the reality is, you're both right. And at the same time, you're kind of both wrong. And when you realize that you can be 100% right and 100% wrong at the same time, just because your perspective is different, it opens your eyes as to should I really be listening, even though I don't understand or agree with what this person's saying? Are we just speaking a different language? Or, and I think that as leaders, we typically, we have to rely on ourselves a lot. We have to trust in ourselves a lot. So it gets really easy if we hear some like information that we disagree with, it's really easy to just dismiss it as wrong. But one of the greatest strengths I ever learned, it actually, the name Sea+Summit, the name of our business, was based off of this. When I realized that my wife was saying the sky was blue and I was saying that it was black, as soon as I realized that she was right and I was right, and that there was a complete total communication barrier, I realized that it was now my job, if I really cared about her, to make that bridge. Relationships need trust and they need good communication. And if you really care about the other person, whether it's a business relationship or a personal relationship, sometimes as a leader, you have to be the entire bridge. It'd be really nice if everyone could meet you halfway all the time, but realistically, that's just not what happens sometimes. If you have some guys who don't share any of your perspective, then sometimes you actually have to learn how to speak their language. I'm driven by just giving the facts and the information. Do this, do this. If someone tells me I'm doing a bad job, I take it upon myself, and I'm like, I'm going to do better. Some guys, you tell them that, and it just destroys their whole day. It's like, I can't work hard now. He hates me. Because there's a language barrier. So the name Sea+Summit actually comes from the fact that my wife and I are so polar opposite. But what we've done is we've created this beautiful relationship of a team where we can work together and actually see things from two different perspectives and have a much more complete picture of the reality around us and how to work together with it. She loves the ocean and I love the mountains. And since it wouldn't be fair for her to live in the mountains or for me to live by the sea, we decided to pick the one place in the continental United States that is the furthest away from both of them. So that's what compromise looks like sometimes. Nobody gets what they want. No, but to me, it's, it's a joke, but it's also, it's the strength of our team. It's the strength of our business, is when we can hear somebody say something, completely disagree with it, but still value it because we understand that, and still have value for that person, and learn to speak their language. And it is just like learning to speak a different language, because you're going to hear it and you're say that's 100% wrong. It's going to feel wrong. It's going to, every part of it. But if you can learn to see things from their perspective, you're going to have a much more complete view. If you can learn to be the entire bridge sometimes, then now you can start communicating your perspective and we can all grow together.
That's exactly what you do as a business owner like myself. Like I'm a construction company owner. All my employees speak a totally different language than what I speak to you, for instance. So everyone, like that, we're all every single one of each individual is totally different language. So I had to learn how to hear everyone out, because one guy sees it from his point of view and the other guy sees it from his point of view, and then I see it from my point of view. So it's like I have to be able, as a business owner, understand what each person is coming from and then relate it to myself and be like, okay, yeah, that makes sense, or no, that that's not right. And so it's a perfect example. It's like I do that every day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's awesome. Guys, we're kind of getting close to our time here. Thank you all for jumping on here. Be sure to go back and listen to some of the other podcasts if you missed some. That's at SeeInSummitSolutions.com. You can get the blog version, or you can get the video version. And don't forget to send this out to your friends. Anyone who's interested in personal or business development, go ahead and send the link out. And so this week's challenge is actually going to be have a conversation with someone you know has a different perspective than you. Listen more than you speak. Ask open-ended questions. And then please reply to us and let us know if you've learned anything. I guarantee you will not be disappointed in the outcome. All right, everybody. Have a good week, and I'll see you next week.
All right, Steve, thanks.